Good evening, and welcome to another segment of the New Black Leadership, here live in the studios of Intellectual Radio. I am the host, sitting with the co-host, Gregory Sane, Stake Your Claim with Minister Mike, co-founder of the New Black Leadership. We are very, very thankful, very blessed by the best to have yet again another opportunity to get it right. I am absolutely thankful to the Creator for giving us the tenacity, giving us the courage, giving us the conviction, and more than anything, giving us the love for our people, humanity as a whole, to try making a difference. And at the end of the day, the New Black Leadership is absolutely a force to be reckoned with. And we're very, very thankful that God has deposited in us a vision and a real mission. And so thank you all for tuning in via Intellectual Radio, via Instagram and Facebook Live and radio and all the other means of checking out this show. Man, I'm honored to sit here with my brother and friend, mother that I've known. Won't get into the years because many of you all start calculating age. So anyway, but just say a long, long time. Boy, when we say that and tell them the year, they go, what? So therefore, you won't get that tonight. But how you doing, Minister Brother Mike?
Man, gee, we blessed to see 2018.
Yes, sir.
Just thankful for the gift of life with all of its ups and downs, and joys and sadness. The new year for me is always a time to reflect on biological ancestors who made their way up from slavery to the North, and to think about, my grandmother, my mother, my aunts, my uncles, my great aunts and uncles, great great aunts and uncles, and just try to tune into their spirit and try to make myself worthy of any prayers that they prayed for the family and the future of the family. And I represent the future that they prayed for my children and the future of the family. And so life is a continuum, and we have an obligation to those who came before us to not just be what they were, but to carry forward the best of what they intended to be. And so I'm very grateful and thankful, just for life, because no tea to us. And so I'm just thankful, Gregory, that we somehow are trying to live in purpose and live on purpose.
That's right.
And be more than just entertainment, more than just two men who buy cars and toys and play video games and watch the football game and break out the barbecue and all of the mundane. Nothing wrong with that, but we are a party people.
That's right.
And somebody has to stand in the gap and try their best to square us up on the serious business of life in a very, very evil and racist world. And it's not easy, but I'm thankful to the Creator to be a part of, hopefully, a proper legacy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's good stuff, because when I think about, and folks out there, make sure you're sharing this with folks that are your friends on Facebook. Just hit the share button, because I think, not that uh, we feel that we're better than anyone, and even those who strictly entertain the people, we laugh, but yet message in our music. There's a message in our method. And honestly, I said on the Facebook post that I put up, I'm very serious with that. And that's not bragging, because there's a price that you pay to speak on the level that we speak on. Although we are versatile, we have been a training, how do you call it? We've been and we've received training, and we've been part of a legacy, part of a movement that raised the bar for us, the level. And that's why when you brought up the ancestors, we could relate to the ancestors with clarity. When we see the debates between folks that are infighting and claim to be about the business building, etc., and when they don't really understand the importance differences, they don't understand the importance of unity. And then when ego gets in the way and false pride. I love what you said. I won't say who it was for, but I think it's for all of us as a community. Consistency and less ego, because if we really applied consistency to the movement and less ego, when we get inside of those rooms, we know that we are all taking part of action that is going to fix something, that's going to change something. But because we got information, we get information, but it's really about, can we stir up something inside? Because something was stirred up inside of us. We had an idea that, things were not right. I mean, when you think about the treatment that our ancestors had to go through, yet there's folks on different levels. And I mean, you have to be real careful or real wise on even how you critique individuals, because our people have got caught up in personality to where, they spend all day mourning and still on a speech at the Golden Globe that our sister Oprah. And I mean, I heard a bit of it, and it was fine. It was good. But then they began to promote false hope. And in the midst of a speech, then you promoting false hope, which is sad. And that means your level of understanding and how to fix things is not just is shallow, because you have a right to get involved with that kind of stuff. But when you really know what's really going on, that's why I love Marvin Gaye's of that song, What's Going On, that whole album, man, because it puts you in the mind, Minister Mike, that when our ancestors went through what they are going through, and you look at the condition of our community, and I'll say something very personal. We get mad at people making decisions in regards to our plight. But if we're not collectively unifying to fix what's wrong with us, our family, and community, then you can't get mad at someone else who are now making plans for our community. Hell, if you don't use it, you lose it. Difficult about us understanding, if we don't use it, we lose it. And we know we got power, we know we got strength, but our disunity, man, is the main corporate enemy to our rise. And that's that egotistical foolishness that, keep us divided. So in this, dispensation of time in 2018, we have to set some clear goals. We have to say by March and April and June and September and October, where do we want to be? Measure, that we're making progress. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, people use our plight individually and they get over, and yet the needle is not moving for the condition of Black people.
Yeah, well, this is why we have a idea in the name of our body, and the ideal is new Black leadership. And those who consider themselves established leaders, many take offense at just the thought that a group would say we need new Black leaders. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, the masses of our people are not the problem. The problem with our condition can be found in the quality of our leadership. And so we don't have a quality of leadership that is rooted in a sense of self-love and in a sense of being tied to the plight of their people and having the element of courage mm-hmm. that is necessary to challenge white men in power,
right,
who have engineered society in a way that we are always treated intellectual, psychological, emotional, economic, social slaves.
Right.
And so the average Black person thinks that if you have an elected office, if you have a high degree behind your name, if you have a certain position in government, that means that you're actually a leader, which is totally untrue. Most of those who represent us in government do not fight for us.
That's right.
Most of those who represent us in government, whether appointed or elected, are afraid to fight. And they have no interest in bonding with the masses of Black people for the votes they need or the money they need. They have no education or orientation in their own culture, so they have no cultural pride. Most of the people in front of us who speak for us, they are steeped in an orientation and education that has bonded them to Eurocentric ideals. And so they look up to whites in a way that allow them emotionally or psychologically to resist the ideal, the agenda, the dictates of white men in particular, and by default white women, but white men in particular. And so we cannot advance because we rely on Black people who are trying to be what we want them to be. Mm. And so we're so tied to the ideal that success is money, that success is validation through a white or a Black Eurocentric centered educational institution that degrees us or certifies us. We don't have the spiritual or intellectual courage to point out to white people that all of your ideals produce pain, misery, suffering. They produce poverty for the majority, wealth for the minority, that they step on people, crush people, destroy human beings, and cast people into the trash heap of society when there's no fiscal or financial. We don't have people in front of us who understand that they must resist and they must fight on an intellectual, emotional, and spiritual level to free the minds of their people. So we cannot move forward. And even in the community of those of us who have some level of consciousness, we are so filled with insecurity, with envy, with petty envy and jealousy of one another. We're so attention starved, power starved. We need everything to be about us. We're afraid to see each other get any victory or any accolade more than we get, that we cannot subordinate our own ego needs to be effective, even in our conscious awareness that there is problem where we still must fight white male supremacy. The war, the resistance must go on against white male supremacy. And we have to take pride in speaking in black terms and about a black agenda, because we have our position in society has not changed in spite of a black president. So we don't have people in front of us, even in the conscious community, that are fighting for traditional Afrocentric values against the ideal that capitalism has a right to taint even Afrocentric values. We don't have, even in the conscious community, those of us who are conscious, there's a problem. And we're not digging deep enough into ourselves as so-called leaders to look deep inside on a spiritual level to understand where we have to be engaged in a process of spiritual development to throw off these spiritual viruses and bad germs and spiritual bacteria that are destroying our credibility and our effectiveness in our efforts to move the needle for poor black people. So we have a big task in front of us. Look at our plight, because really white people now are not really our biggest problem anymore. Our biggest problem is our stratification along class, and how some of us feel like we're elite. Some of us feel like we're more educated. Some of us feel like I have money and I don't deal with people if they don't have money. And now you have a whole generation that we let the white man call millennials. These are white, artificial, Eurocentric terms that somehow, no matter how conscious you seem to be or educated you seem to be and about blackness you seem to be, we accept the labels of our slave master. We always accept the labels and categories that he pushes us into and wonder why we're perpetuating our own oppression, because we have not, our consciousness is not raised to the level where we can identify we're still submitting and subordinate our minds to the minds of white men who really hate our guts and everything that we represent. So we have to deal with leadership. We have to deal with leadership. We got to be able to, I got to be able to sit across the table from you, Brother Greg, and have you give me constructive criticism. I have to be able to take your suggestions on how I can do my function well in whatever capacity as a leader or as a person. I have to be less defensive decisions I make or strategies I use or ideals I have to try to move the community forward or do something good for our people, if you see where it could be better or more effective, or we need to add this, or let's think about this, then I got to be willing to have an open mind and be able to talk like adults and say, let's break this down and let's come to the scientific conclusions we need to make, that for the benefit of the whole, not just for the benefit of me or the benefit of you, but the benefit of everybody. We got to figure out, how do we mature Black leaders? Because in my experience, I don't know about yours, I've been a part of Black organizations my whole life. We got a lot of insecure Black people out in front of the masses.
Oh yeah.
And we can't take no criticism. We can't take any very little correction, even the beefs that you're talking about.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at Brother Umar and the other brother, well,
Tariq, I think.
Tariq, yeah. So we can't take no criticism. Take criticism. This is why I was telling you previously, last time we were on Brother Harold's show. Look, when you're in leadership, you're gonna take some credit. You're gonna be critiqued. Sometimes wrongly, but sometimes there's some truth in it, right?
That's right.
But if the only way we know how to respond to one another is to go in the public, in front of the people, and we start fighting with each other publicly, then we got a bad idea about the responsibility of leadership.
Yeah.
It don't mean we're not gonna have no disagreements, but we got to learn how to address our disagreements. If we got to really cuss each other out,
I agree.
We gotta discipline ourselves, form the habit of saying, you know what, I'm gonna meet you, come to my house, or I'm coming to your house, or we're gonna rent this room out over here, and we're gonna chop it up, we're gonna talk turkey, we're gonna say, I got something I need. So we're gonna say this behind closed doors, and when we leave this room, this how we gonna do. We ain't settled it all yet. But we gonna talk behind. So when we go out in public, I ain't gonna slam you. You ain't gonna slam me. You can critique me. I'll critique you, but we're not gonna make it personal. We're not gonna dog each other out, and we're gonna continue to come back into this room until we can come to, civilized terms in a way, and figure out how we both can help the people, even though we may have a disagreement with philosophy or strategy on a particular thing. We have to mature leadership, Black leadership, in a way that will not continue to divide and stratify you versus the people who like me.
No, I love it. Now, what you said is there's a living example right in front of us.
That's right.
The Honorable Brother Minister Louis Farrakhan.
The best example. I
mean, the best example, because there are plenty of them that he could have crushed, and he did not. Many of us was like, crush him, but not mature enough to understand the damage, as you just articulated, that really does in terms of further dividing our community. Because when I heard Bishop T.D. Jakes say what he said on the Breakfast Club, I was heated, because I'm like, man, what kind of punk stuff is that? But then how do we benefit from, as you say, beating each other up? And I mean, when you talk about even the local politicians, some of them that we'll never have a dialogue with some of them if we beat them up to the degree where they don't want to come on your show. They don't want to talk to you because you put a huge wedge in between, versus going to their office and visiting them, making an appointment, or inviting them to your set, as you just said, and then say, what's going on? They understand that they could do more. But once you put them out there, then there's resistance. So how do we, Minister Mike, in the psychology of this type of person, how do we, is it a group of Black people, period, that will get it and move out with the assignment of fixing this whole piece, the new black leadership. Because if people are stuck, they going out like this. Some of them, it's just keeping it real that some of them are going out. So we in our own way. And is it unproductive and foolish for us to try to get them to come around? How much time do we have on some of these jokers who have already proven themselves to act as an enemy to the rise of black people conscious? Or do we look to wake up or inspire that group who get it and realize that, the coats have different colors, meaning, we have our differences. Leadership coalition, we all operate in different spaces and places, but we understand that this work is too valuable. And it bothers me, Minister Mike, when folks start crying in the church or in the mosque or in the cathedral or in the temple. They start crying, when they hear songs. They start crying and they feel bad. They watch some of the depictions of our people being slaughtered and mistreated. But yet, our participants now.
Yeah, but you don't. This is why in classes I have a statement I usually make. And I always point out, look, we all have a brain, but almost none of us know how it works. We all have a brain, but most of us cannot name the parts of the brain. Most of us do not know the chemistry of the brain. Most of us do not know much about the brain. So I'm really not talking about the brain. I'm really trying to give a metaphor to get people to realize that most of us have not learned how to think in our own best interests. Most of us have been trained or socialized to think a certain way. So when you talk about the emotionalism we demonstrate in church, it's no different from the emotionalism we demonstrate in politics. And it's no different from the emotionalism we live when it comes to economics. Most of what we do as Black people, and in truth, most white folks, but I'm interested in Black folks. Most of us as Black people, we live an emotional life, but we don't develop what some scientists call emotional intelligence. Thoughts are designed or have the potential to control emotion. But if your thoughts are not well formed, if you have not practiced thinking, real thinking, then your emotions have more power than your thoughts. So when something stimulates your emotion, even when it's against yourself, you will find yourself acting in the emotion because your thought that would counter that emotional feeling is so weak that you can't stop that urge. So most of us have been made to feel a certain way about ourselves as Black people. And the only way you can counter how you feel about yourself as a Black person is that you have to be submerged in a thought process that will change how you think about yourself and thereby shift about yourself. So if you look at all of our elected officials, just as an example, at any level, if we could survey them, how many of them have read Sheikh Anta Diop? How many of them have read Chancellor Williams? How many of them have read and studied Carter G. Woodson? How many of them have studied the biography and the strategies and thinkings of Patrice Lumumba, or Marcus Garvey, or any of the people who tried to break the psychological and emotional grip of white supremacy on our minds? Most of the people that are up in front of us have very little knowledge about themselves as black people outside of what white people made them feel about and think about themselves.
So, question for you: what's their motivation?
Their motivation is the value system of white people. And in America, you look, is to be like the people that you look up to. And if you look up to white people in general, well, what do white people do? White people like baseball, apple pie, and Chevrolet. So you want to be able to go to the base. This is very rhetorical, of course, but white people like money, and they do X, Y, and Z to get money. So I want to be like them. So whatever I do, if it's like what they do to get money, then don't come to me with this black stuff. If white people govern the city, the state, the county, the nation like this, if white people manage tax dollars and grant money, is this how they handle it? If they do that, and I want to be like them, I want to be accepted by them, I want to feel like I'm on their level some kind of way, so I will do what they do. You know what I'm saying? If this is how they educate, if they teach our children to pass tests, but never really teach them how to develop themselves. If white people say it's about the test, then damn it, it's about the test. And I'm not going to put up no resistance. I'm not going to push back. I'm not going to think outside of that box and that paradigm. I'm going to represent that box and that paradigm. So most of us, when we go into these elected offices, or we're judges sitting on the bench, or we're prosecutors in the courtroom, or defense attorneys in the courtroom, we are already psychologically seated in a way that it's easy for white people to negotiate with us. It's easy for them to compromise us because we believe in them.
I got to agree with you wholeheartedly, because I said, to some folks, and this is nothing against you, sister, if you find some way to watch, or you viewing this broadcast. But when Kim Fox got her job, it was controversy around Laquan McDonald or other cases. There's one right in front of her now. Mm-hmm. But when you hear her responses, she's afraid. She's afraid to speak with the authority that she has. And the authority is about righteousness, what's right, not something that's going to make your colleagues upset with you because you boldly decide that studying this case, looking at exactly what went down, it don't take all of that stuff to say, hell no, that was absolutely wicked. And there's no discussion. There's no discussions.
Yeah.
But yet we go around all of that, stall it ourselves. Now we begin to stall it, to filibust, because we don't want to come straight out of the gates to say that, look, as a judge, I'm listening and I'm checking this out. And because, of the dominant society, they make excuses. They find all kind of reasons to say, a little Mikey did what he was doing because of some other type of, upbringing and etc. He's a good kid. He was the valedictorian, all kind of stuff. But when it comes to young black males, they don't go back and try to find a way to get them through the system to give them another opportunity. But you were going to say something as it relates to not just Kim Fox,
Well,
because we
yeah,
applaud, people accomplishments. But hell, if you ain't there to serve the injustice that we know is obvious, then I'm not impressed with nobody that have any position that don't look out for those who've been locked out. And that's why I have my differences. I know it ain't no damn post-racial society after the 8 years. And anybody who think like that, you foolish. And you doing it because I guess you feel like you don't want to have a real conversation. Mm-hmm. But go ahead, Minister Mike, because you was getting ready to say something in regards to.
Well, the first point in what you said, if you've been trained and educated from the mind of white people, all the way through your secondary, post-secondary, all the degrees you have, your concept of law, the whole concept of justice, you've been trained to see the world through white eyes. And so when you're trained to see the world through white eyes, you become the instrument for white male supremacy. And white male supremacy has always demonized, monsterized, guerrillarized Black men. We've always been only deserving of crime, being viewed in a crime and punishment perspective. So we've never received justice, even from Blacks who are in the so-called criminal justice system, because they don't have a mind justice, even though they look like us. Now, having said that, I'm going to say this, and some of our viewers may take offense to this, but I have it on good source that Kim Fox, this is how they play on our emotions. Nobody's ever mentioned, never mentioned. And we can ask her if this is true, but I have it on good source that I don't think untrue, but I have it on good source that Kim Fox and Anita Alvarez ate dinner several times a month with one another on a regular basis, leading all the way up into the Laquan McDonald murder. And so Kim Fox already, when she took office, before she was ever became ours fully, she was already vested. She was already kind of thinking the same kind of club with a woman like Anita Alvarez, and the value system that Anita Alvarez represented, that Black people felt was so heinous and so racist. Kim Fox was her friend. Black women waving the flag, Black men went out on the streets. Everybody was up and roared to put Kim Fox in office, and she played on our emotions by prosecuting a few cops on some shootings. But now when it's coming down that COPA is finding some shootings unjustified, she's quiet as a church mouse, because you're dealing with a class of Black people that are elites. They're bourgeois. They don't feel the pain and suffering of Black people who are somewhere right now with their heat off and got their children huddled around a stove or an oven or a space heater because they don't have the money to pay a gas bill, or they got to choose between the gas bill and buying boots for their babies or whatever their financial dilemma is, but they at the bottom rung of society simply because they're Black and they've been victimized by white male supremacy through inferior 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th class education that does not prepare them to reach their human potential. They are the rejects of society and the elite class, most of the black people in front of us do not relate to that pain and that suffering of our people. We're not dealing with black people that ever spent a week in county jail, that knows the filthy, inhumane conditions in county jail or even in a local lockup. These are not people that put themselves at any pain to understand what poor black people go through. They eat well, they ride well, they live well, and they don't even walk through the neighborhood to talk to Pookie or Tyrone or Shanae or Shaniqua. They don't go in the clubs to mingle with the ratchet of our people, as they're called, and understand what they're going through. These are elite black people. And so when they get in there with white folks, man, they will sell us down the drain because they have no vested interest or connection to 85% of black people. And I am sorry to say, as beautiful and as intelligent as she is, Kim Fox is a person who rode in on the suffering of a poor young black man who the system completely failed.
And let me tell you, I am a critic of that type of elitist mentality. And I know, and I watched it when I was at the Urban League. It bothered me to no end because there was no reason to celebrate. I dare you celebrate. I know we like to go out and party and have a good time and mingle, network, so-called. Ain't no real networking hardly ever going on. You know, that's just really a staged party in itself, because we don't come out of that with any real idea to go. At the Urban League, Minister Mike, I have to totally agree. And I watched them. I would be by the escalator. I would sit over there, and yeah, I had on a nice tux and haircut, shoes shine, and they didn't know what was in my pocket. They were strictly going by I was there and image, and there was the same people every time. All they did was, hobnob with each other. It was sickening. Because I knew outside of those walls what I drove through. And I knew they were not in there because they were all feeling the pain, and the cause of that whole gala was about, changing the mindset and the condition of the people. And it's just a fact. And until people really feel it like that, don't claim Jesus, Muhammad, don't claim God. Because it said, if you have not done it until the least of them, then you have not unto me. So it's real. What profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his or her? All of those books, ye shall know the truth. That's the only thing that's going to set you free. So while we playing games with the materialism, I mean, it's really rooted in low self-esteem. But going back to what you said, bro, that's real. And I want you to share more, Minister Mike, of the psychology. How do one come out of that type of mentality? So if those fans of, say, Kim Fox, and this ain't to beat up Kim Fox, this is to derive at a sickness that we have trying to fit in, going along to get along. Yet, we're not upset about the wretched condition, as you said so intelligently, clearly. How do we move the needle of poverty, of incarceration, of just this whole economic crisis? No real plan for housing. And we talk about how many black folks have fled the state of Illinois. But hell, who trying to do something to keep them here?
Yeah, so I'm trying to give a context for leadership called the 13 Principles of New Black Leadership. And seventh principle is the leader should have a history or track record of self-sacrifice. And that's so critical because, you know, what we do in our organizations is we take an issue that's affecting Black people. We put out a position paper, a policy statement. We have a press release, a press conference, and it's all designed simply to get the next grant, to get the next contract. And once we get the grant, once we get the contract, we do a little bit of work on it. We do a little bit of just enough to make our little small organization look good, but have an interest affecting the whole community or changing life for the whole community. We exploit for the gain of our group or our own organization or ourselves individually. So if we do not have leaders who are willing to look, when you go in as an alderman and you got to challenge the mayor on something because the mayor is being unfair, he's being unwise, or he's being flat out racist, and it's affecting your people. If you're not willing to be self-sacrificing, then you can't win dealing with the mayor. Because the first thing a people of power ask you is, what do you want? And if you got a want and you let them fulfill your want for you or what you think you need for your office or your organization, and it will only benefit a few people in your organization, and your organization is not working to benefit the whole, then the minute they give you your want, your failure to be self-sacrificial nullifies your leadership. Because 85% of Black people are struggling to keep a stable life. 85% of Black people live check to check. 85% of Black people cannot afford to improve the educational choices of their children, cannot afford to change the environment in which they raise their children, cannot afford to create a financial inheritance for their children, cannot afford to eat the best foods when they go in the supermarket, cannot afford to lift their own quality of life. 85% of Black people are under the weight of an unjust white male supremacist society. So when you go in with a constituency and you don't have a life that you're willing to be self-sacrificial, really are not a good representative of Black people. Because if the mayor says, well, we'll give you 50,000 over here or 5 million over there, we'll improve your coffer some kind of way, but you know the improvement of your coffer is a small little deal that will not help the seniors in that are struggling, or will not help the young people that are struggling, or will not help Black men be in a better position to take responsibility for their women and their children, the mothers of their children, and you are compromising that to help a handful of people that's rotating in your little inner circle, then you are a poor representative for Black people because you're unwilling to give up a raise. You're unwilling to give up more disposable petty cash type of funding or some little pet project that'll have your name on it after you leave office because you want to leave some superficial legacy, a statue or plaque or building or street sign somewhere. We have to challenge this notion that because you are in the position, you have a right to get gain and benefit and not be self-sacrificial for the benefit of the whole. That's the problem. Everybody wants more for themselves. We never have enough. We want the next cruise, the next gala, we want that. We want that for ourselves. We want to be in the social, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with you living well, but your fight should be 10 times bigger than your salary.
That's right. And let me tell you, bro, I love what you just articulated because it connects with this whole mentality that when who pushes the buttons, who pushes the buttons to tell you what it is that you want to talk about. You spend, there's no commercials right here. Time is valuable to wake up the people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you spend this morning with the same talking points that white America gave you, how stupid is that? You wasted all morning. I listened to a couple of shows. They was talking about this Oprah stuff and etc., which means that you are led by stupidity versus being relevant. Now, those are distractions from really those conversations, Minister Mike, that you said we gotta have, because the healing, we ain't getting there because we still mad. Now I know there are some people that is not gonna come in the room. They're not, because they have a goal. And if it's hustling, if it's profiting off of misery, they're gonna stay in that lane. They're gonna say a few things just to, though they're about the business of nation building or helping our people. But going back to the psychology of this mind that you have so scientifically pointed out, we gotta have a conversation about that. That's one of those conversations we don't want to face. Means that you're gonna have to be uncovered,
Right.
and believe me, let me tell you this, without all the other stuff, I'm gonna leave it at that. You're beautiful, but you gotta first love yourself, because it goes back, Minister Mike, to somebody else validating for us. That's a real way of thinking. That's one of the most dangerous. And that's why, Minister Mike, if I wasn't on this show and I knew that you were on or others was on, uh, David Peterson was on, just a bunch of people, Kim Delaney was on, Brother Enoch, Brother Johnny Muhammad, a number of the new black leadership. If I knew that Brother Lance was on, Lance Williams, I want to hear it. And if they saying something that I know I need to fix in my life, should I be mad? Then why the hell you go to the doctor? Why the hell you go to the doctor? Because oftentimes he really don't say what you want to hear, especially when he talk about you need to change your diet.
Well,
I mean, it connects to a mind and habits and weaknesses to where we don't want to change, but the minute our life is on the line, then we get scared. It might not be forever. At first night, hell, we'll survive with just the IV and and ice chips. Well, and then go back to the chicken later.
Yeah. I don't want people to mistake the passion of how I'm saying what I'm saying with the intent of the message. Kim Fox is still our sister.
Love her.
And love her great. And so we have to love one another until you don't leave us no option. But on the point that you made about Oprah, I want to go to the other side and commend Oprah. I think that what she said was very masterful to, in her own way, as Oprah. She's not one of us like that. She's not a grassroots person. She doesn't, but she's Oprah. So I think she very artfully challenged the wickedness of white people by invoking that little black girl being raped in the South and then challenge. See, the challenge is we got to understand, our women need to understand that black men have never been in a position, and for the most part, except for a few of us who just are bad people, for the most part, black men have never had a desire to oppress black women. Black men have always been in this pursuit of the attention, the affection, the acceptance, and the validation of black women. Now, there are some of us, there's some of us who have been evil. There's some of us who have been less than what we should be. There's some of us who have been that. That's true. But we have never been the architects of sexism. Any sexism we have lived and demonstrated in our life is because of what I said earlier. We were educated and trained and socialized to think like white men. So the norms and standards of what it has meant to be a man have all come to us from white people. We've been disconnected from the traditional so-called African standards of maleness, pre-colonial African standards of maleness. We have inherited our ideals and vision of manhood from white men, and those white men in their standards have been very juvenile, very sociopathic, very narcissistic, and we've inherited that, most of us, and without having a proper and thorough knowledge of ourselves, we are at the whims of that thinking that has been socialized and programmed into us. But in our very core, we have never been responsible for sexism and the oppression of women in this land. That has been the fight of white women against their own men. And unfortunately, white women have duped many of our women into believing that their fight was our women's fight, when that is furthest thing from the truth. And so I think Oprah, in the status she has, very skillfully took out a surgical knife and kind of pricked the brains of a lot of white men. And so,
and I'm glad you explained it like that, because, you know, but they took the conversation you just did. Well, they took it and tried to make her into now she's always been a superstar, but now a Harriet Tubman.
Well, when you see, most of our black women are highly educated. They have college degree.
Advanced.
They have advanced college degree. They are accepted in corporate America. They run corporate America. They manage corporate America. So they have a relationship to the white world that the average black man does not enjoy. So they view the world from a status that they don't appreciate. They don't understand that white men have skillfully seduced them into becoming their agents. And so they view the world in a way that colors their view or shades their ability to see the hurt that black men suffer, and the white woman has stepped in the midst of that and brought them into the feminist ideal, which means that they have to be hostile to any recognition that men, especially black men, have any pain or emotions or hurt or any of that. Most feminists, real women, black women who have embraced white feminism, reject the notion that you should acknowledge the pain and suffering and the oppression of black men. So a lot of people who are Oprah fans come from that mentality. So that makes them heroize or deify almost Oprah at a level, because in their minds, validation for feminism. But they missed that Oprah gave a very balanced condemnation of men who are abusers and assaulters, the same time elevated men who do not agree with that and who have resisted that and who are the opposite of that. She gave a very balanced presentation, but when your mind has been infected by the mind virus of what is called white female feminism, then you don't hear the balance. You don't see the nuances of the message that would allow you to understand your responsibility as a woman to end this. See, we got to end this battle of the sexes. White men can afford that because they still control the world that they built, or we built for them. They still have the power. We don't have any power. We are the ones who have 70 to 75% of our homes headed by single parents. We're the ones who have extreme levels of divorce. We're the ones who have a high percentage of women who do not have relationship skills and cannot find, keep, or nurture a marriage. We're the ones who have black men who are not in a position to provide for, maintain, and protect their family emotionally, psychologically, and economically. We're the victims, both the black man and the black woman. We cannot afford this stratified conversation that all black men ain't this and all black women are this. We are, when you do that, we don't realize that we are being victims. We're acting on the victimization of white men who want our women. See, he needed our women to make corporate America run. So look, think about the truth of what I'm saying. And you work in corporate America, you know it's women running stuff, man. So if we had the possession of our women, the loyalty of our women, the true natural affection of our women, the dedication of our women, the willingness of our women to use their ability to implement our ideals, then the white world would be in trouble. But because we don't have our woman, we can't make progress without her. But the white man has already stolen her from us intellectually and emotionally. Capable of buying a dog and nurturing a dog, many of them, as their companion. They're more capable of taking their teenage boy and having him replicating a male relationship with their son than they are with the father of the son. They're more emotionally, psychologically capable of relating to the son than they are the father of the son. They're more comfortable with the son driving the car, with the son opening the door, with buying the son clothes and supporting the son's ideals. But the man is demonized and vilified and casted off and rejected. But black women didn't do it to themselves. I'm saying that white male supremacy in collusion with white female feminism is what produced these stratified conditions among black men and black women and keep us at odds from one another, because black women are needed by white men to keep their world running and their balls spinning.
Wow. Damn, I don't have nothing to say. That is just so painful listening to that truth. That's viewing this honestly. You should play it back and share it. Because see, ain't no freedom without the truth. And it's a balanced conversation because it ain't a blame game. It's what has happened to us. If we don't get past that, we won't make it. And that's why we will continue to suffer greatly, because we don't want this conversation. We don't want it. It's hard to accept. And I get it. So you can't even talk about people celebrating certain things that we know because we so stuck. And when you start talking about white supremacy or being socialized and conditioned, and you think that way and you bust out the books and talk about Constantine, all kind of stuff. And folks, but then it's like, but you practicing it. The truth is, or as they say, the proof is in the pudding. So Mike, I gotta say that thank you. Thank you so much. Thank God.
That's right.
You know, all praise is due to God. And I'm telling you, folks, that that's why I said when you say you're a Christian or Muslim or Hebrew, you wouldn't at all follow Jesus. You wouldn't, because when you go back and look at them scriptures, they were deep. He's talking about some loose of Satan. He was trying to get the people from the grip. The grip that you're talking about. And don't try to go back and say you can relate to it. Hell, and you can't come up to 2018 and see it. Forget about it. That's what's missing, folks.
Well, the Bible says, let this mind be in you. Well, first it says, Paul says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then it says, let this mind be in you, the same as is in Christ Jesus.
Teach.
But the problem is, we've been given the white male supremacist narrative, image, and version of Christ Jesus. And because of that, we don't have the real Christ Jesus. And so the mind is what white people, the mind of our women. Well, he stole all our minds. But those of us who really want to be men, it's hard to be a man without the support of a black woman.
Yeah.
And as long as he has our women's minds, it's hard for us.
Yeah, because without them,
and so they're trained to endure whatever misery, suffering, torment, disrespect, or whatever in corporate America for white men. But when it comes to us, they're applauded for leaving us. They're applauded from running from us. They're validated for having the so-called courage to walk away, right? But they are validated for having the courage to stay with their corporate masters.
You called them agents. I want to have a full conversation. Damn, agents, sisters. Listen, it's all about love, and it's all about the truth, and it's all about family, and it's all about understanding that this is not an attack whatsoever. And if you feel that way, you're guilty yourself of willingly participating in your own demise. But when you say you value the truth, stay out of the church and the mosque and the synagogue and the temple. Hell, if you can't understand and accept this, it's all about healing. It's all about coming to grips that we got work to do, but it starts first with our mind. Hell, how you gonna save our people and change the condition if you don't change your mind and your way of thinking? Thank you, Minister Mike.
Thank you, Brother Gregory.
Brother, I call him the breath of fire. But it ain't the breath, it's what's been embodied in the breath. And he's standing on some tall shoulders and only, saying what he know needs to be said because God is in control. And what we've been blessed with is good examples. And that's why I referred. And that's why some of you all keep tuning in to Intellectual Radio. Nothing but great shows on here. You got to get away from being conditioned and just listening to that. It's a bunch of shows that come on this particular show. Tell more people about Intellectual Radio. And don't forget, Butt Naked Truth too, baby. It's a bunch of other places that you can get it. But thank you, Brother Earl Winfrey, the best producer on the planet. And Wanda, the real driver behind all that. We ain't crazy.
Right.
We leave out
That's
the
right.
sisters. Ain't no dinner. Ain't no love. Ain't no nothing. Hell, I'm nothing without the black woman.
That's right.
And Mike
That's
ain't
a
either.
fact. That's a fact.
Earl ain't.
That's
we
a fact.
love our sisters.
That's a
and
fact.
we know that without you all, forget about it. Peace and love. Nothing but love. New.